So the question is, why the constant anger? And why resort to the kind of crude language that seems to have become a trademark of the Democratic Party? We're now approaching a very dangerous peak of hostility. Media outlets like the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times always knew about Joe Biden's cognitive decline. Suddenly, we're being presented with all these insider quotes confirming that he was physically and mentally unfit to fulfill the duties of his office. But people had been pointing that out for years. When they did, they were mocked, accused of spreading fake news, or labeled as ageist. Now the very people who denied it admit it was all covered up. It was a conspiracy. Those early critics were right all along. Biden was clearly impaired. Now Francis Collins from the NIH, who once supported strict lockdowns, is starting to acknowledge the damage they caused. He's been hinting at this for some time, but more so recently. The lockdowns, he now admits, may not have been the right move. Those policies shattered the middle class. We were told to assign infinite value to preventing the spread and saving lives, yet we assigned no value to the massive collateral damage. A disrupted economy, children kept out of school, people's lives upended. The consequences were staggering: missed cancer screenings, rising domestic abuse, substance addiction, suicides. We shut down society in an unprecedented way, not just the economy, but culture, community, politics. And now, those responsible are offering half-hearted apologies. As for Biden, he's now publicly expressing disappointment in Attorney General Merrick Garland, not because Garland went too far, but because he didn't go far enough in prosecuting Donald Trump. Biden isn't denying the politicization of the Justice Department. He's frustrated it wasn't weaponized more aggressively. If that was the plan all along, why not say it during the campaign? Why not be transparent 6 months ago? And then there's David Ehrlich from the New York Times. Some might remember him. He co-wrote several damaging articles during the Brett Kavanaugh hearings. Now he's sending a letter to Mark Judge, one of his former targets, vaguely apologizing. He admits in a roundabout way that maybe they went too far, that perhaps digging into questionable allegations from when Kavanaugh was 17 or 18 was a bit much. And on top of all that, we're seeing more information surface about the FBI's role in January 6th. Initially, we were told there were only a few informants. Now it turns out there may have been undercover agents involved as well. Remember Matthew Rosenberg from the New York Times? He once downplayed these claims. Turns out the truth might be more complex than what we were led to believe. We're starting to see something strange happening, what I call the now they tell us phenomenon. Remember the media narrative around January 6th? We were told it was an unprovoked insurrection, but when James O'Keefe ambushed a key source in an interview, he admitted it was overblown, sensationalized. That hysteria. Now even the FBI concedes there were informants involved, and after years of silence, they've just released surveillance footage of the person suspected of planting explosive devices at the DNC and RNC, someone we were previously told either didn't exist or wasn't relevant. Suddenly the story is changing, so you have to ask, why now? Why is it only now being accepted that Joe Biden may not be fully fit for office? That the COVID response was chaotic? That Brett Kavanaugh may not have been the villain he was painted as? That January 6th was more complex than the approved narrative? These last-minute revelations suggest two possible reasons. There's a fear that a returning Trump administration might hold certain people accountable for behavior that was not just unethical, but potentially illegal. Or these same elites sense the national mood shifting. They're opportunists after all. We're at peak woke, and institutions like the FBI, NIH, and mainstream media are facing record low trust levels. And maybe, just maybe, they're projecting. If they had done what they accuse others of doing, and power shifted, they know exactly how they would retaliate. So they're trying to dump all this information out now to soften the blow. Take General Charles Q. Brown, for instance, the current chairman of the Joint Chiefs. He's repeatedly lectured the American public on race and gender as if that's central to military readiness. His predecessor, General Mark Milley, did even worse. He called his Chinese counterpart in the PLA to reassure him he'd give a heads up if Trump ever went rogue. Milley also disrupted the chain of command by instructing theater commanders to report to him instead of the defense secretary, something explicitly outside his authority. Upon retirement, he called the former commander-in-chief a fascist while he was actively running for office. That's a clear violation of Article 88 of the UCMJ, which forbids contemptuous words about elected leaders by military officers. Now, onto media hypocrisy. Look at Rachel Maddow. Her ratings have plummeted. She shows up one day a week and earns $25 million a year. After MSNBC recently laid off Joy Reid and much of their shared staff, Maddow went on air blasting the network for the firings. But let's be honest, she could easily donate a few million from her bloated salary to support those staffers if she really cared. Joy Reid, her audience barely reached 150,000 viewers, comparable to a mid-sized American city. Yet she was earning $1.3 million. And she has a history of problematic tweets, from mocking LGBTQ individuals to suggesting political opponents were gay in a derogatory way. When old posts resurfaced, she claimed she'd been hacked. The FBI investigated and found no evidence. Her excuse then shifted to, "I don't remember writing that." Convenient. Then we have Representative Robert Garcia, who called Elon Musk a dick on national TV. When confronted, he doubled down, saying you bring weapons to bar fights. And a Tennessee pastor, Steve Coddle, called Musk satanic and said violence might be necessary to stop him. Think about that. Musk, who revitalized the US space program, reshaped the auto industry, and opened up public discourse through X, formerly Twitter, is being demonized by elites. Why? For saying the obvious, the national debt is unsustainable, and we need a combination of spending cuts and revenue enhancements to balance the budget. This demonization has dangerous consequences. Just before the first attempt on Trump's life, Joe Biden referred to him as someone who needed to be put in the bullseye. He's called Trump supporters semi-fascists and ultra-MAGA extremists. At the same time, the New Republic published a cover depicting Musk with a Hitler-style mustache. The result? Assassination attempts, open calls for violence, and a dangerously lowered bar for public discourse. The left needs to stop. It's reckless. When powerful people repeatedly compare a public figure like Musk to genocidal maniacs, they set the stage for real-world violence, and they will be held accountable for it. The hypocrisy doesn't end there. Take Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. He frequently lectures others about ethics and conflict of interest. Yet it was discovered that he's been voting on legislation that benefits oceanic advocacy groups tied to his wife, who has received up to $2 million from those connections since 2008. He never recused himself. By his own standards, he should have stepped back. This is the crux of the issue. Powerful elites play by one set of rules and impose another on the rest of us. Whether it's Maddow, Reid, Milley, or Whitehouse, they operate with impunity. They set the rhetoric, dodge the consequences, and shield themselves behind prestige or victimhood. And now we're seeing the backlash. Elon Musk is the new target, vilified with billboards calling for his elimination, hate-filled social media campaigns, and open threats from politicians and clergy alike. Even Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur questioned Musk's loyalty because he's a naturalized citizen, something the left would usually label xenophobic. In the end, it's all projection. Those screaming the loudest about fascism and threats to democracy are often the ones abusing their power, eroding civil discourse, and dividing the country. So maybe it's time to stop listening to the people who only find their conscience when the tides are turning.